The North Sea is a dangerous, cold, and stormy stretch of water, known mostly today for its massive oil rigs and fishing fleets. But underneath these waves lies one of Europe's greatest dynamic secrets. For over a century, fishermen and oil companies have been accidentally dredging up mammoth bones, woolly rhinoceros skulls, and thousands of advanced stone tools from the seabed. These are not relics of shipwrecks. They're the remains of a vast, fertile country larger than modern-day Denmark. It was a thriving human paradise that completely vanished. Today, we are exploring Europe's real Atlantis. We're going to map the Mesolithic Eden known as Doggerland, explaining how it existed, who lived there, and the terrifying climate cataclysm that violently swallowed it whole. To understand how an entire continent could vanish, we first have to break down how it was created, using radically simple logic about the history of water. We can use an ice age concept. When you freeze water, it gets locked on land as glaciers. During the peak of the last ice age, massive sheets of ice, kilometers thick, covered most of northern Europe. Because so much water was frozen, global sea levels were dramatically lower, about 120 meters lower than they are today. This meant Great Britain was not an island. It was just the high ground on the edge of a massive, wide plain that stretched all the way to mainland Europe. If you stood in modern-day London, you could walk all the way to the Netherlands without getting your feet wet. This vast plain is what we call Doggerland. Doggerland was not just a bridge for animals. It was a home for people. Around 10,000 years ago, as the Ice Age began to end and the massive ice sheets melted, Doggerland transformed into one of the richest dynamic landscapes in Europe. It was a low-lying, soggy Eden, full of massive rivers, shallow lagoons, and deep forests. This was the Middle Stone Age or Mesolithic. For these hunter-gatherer communities, Doggerland was perfect. The wide estuaries and marshes provided limitless amounts of fish, birds, and large game like mammoths and red deer. For centuries, this thriving plain was the center of human life on the European continent, filled with sophisticated communities thriving on the abundance of a dynamic wetland paradise. But the dynamic Eden was doomed. As the global climate continued to warm, the massive glaciers kept melting, and sea levels began to rise at a terrifying rate, sometimes by entire meters within a single generation. Doggerland was incredibly flat and low-lying. This meant even a small rise in the water pushed the coastline back miles, literally stealing land overnight. Year after year, hunting grounds turned into salt marshes, forests died, and fresh water became salt water. The people of Doggerland were trapped in a centuries-long, agonizing, and permanent retreat, forced to abandon their ancestral lands and escape toward the high ground that eventually became modern-day Britain and northern Europe. While the drowning of Doggerland was a slow process, some studies from top universities suggest that the final, violent blow arrived in an instant. Roughly 8,200 years ago, a massive underwater landslide occurred off the coast of Norway. Known as the Storegga Slide, this massive shift of sediment, one of the largest in history, triggered a catastrophic tsunami. Computer models suggest a terrifying wall of water, perhaps 5 meters high, slammed into what remained of the Doggerland plain. This single event would have violently engulfed the remaining low-lying marshes, destroying any remaining coastal communities in minutes, and effectively finalizing the transformation of the Great Plain into the North Sea. Here is an incredible fact to wrap up this dynamic topic. We are currently mapping this lost world without actually digging, by using seismic data originally collected by oil and gas companies to survey the seabed. Dynamic archaeological projects, like Europe's Lost Frontiers, are creating hyper-detailed 3D topographical maps of the submerged valleys and ancient hills of Doggerland. We're not just finding bones, we are mapping the ancient geography of a lost world. The story of Doggerland is more than just a history lesson. It is a profound climate change warning. It reminds us that human civilization has always been at the mercy of dynamic sea levels, and that sometimes the dynamic oceans do not just move the borders, they swallow entire worlds whole. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video.